Big Jeff Car. Audio 101. Yalanga kabade. Yabitu kabadi.
Hey, it's Big Jeff coming to you with Car Audio 101 episode 4. Something we started a couple years back and brought it back in 2025, where we go over common questions about car audio systems and everything else. And we've added in this year, giving some shout outs to good comments, bad comments, the trolls and the haters and the followers. We're going to shout you out. I see you and now you see me. Before you even start, you could be a cheap ass or not, but hit that like button. It doesn't cost you $1. Leave a comment now and you can leave one later in the video. Maybe even that comment will show up in one of the episodes. I'm Big Jeff from BigJeffAudio.com. Question 1 for episode 4. Can I run high-powered amp on a stock electrical system? There's got to be a little more info on that. High-powered amp. Some people think 1,000 watt is high-powered or 5,000 watt. Here's how it is. You need power. And the factory battery is really only made to start your vehicle, then your alternator takes over. Generally, a factory vehicle will put a big enough alternator to run all of its electrical, AC, windshield wipers, lights, things like that. So let's just say, round numbers, you have a 80, or let's just say 100 amp alternator, which is actually pretty good factory. And that runs, say, 60 amps of power in a vehicle and leaves a little bit left over. And now you throw in an amplifier that's pulling 100 amps. Well, eventually that battery, and also the size of the battery, and in that world they call it cold cranking amps. Why? Because it's made just to start the vehicle. In car audio world, we talk about amps per hour, which means they can supply how many amps per hour. But long story short, there's other things you got to think about. Am I running this system with the car just idling or even off? That's a bad no-no. Am I running it while I'm driving normal listening music? That's pretty good because the alternator's kicking out. Remember, alternators don't do much at idle. They do the bare minimum. Usually once they get to like $2,000, $2,500, it starts to kick out more. But depending on what you consider high powered, here's what I believe. If it's under 2,000 watt amp and you have a decent battery under the hood, I think it should be fine for normal listening. But if you're sitting there running it at idle with the lights on and the AC on and the windows down and you're just boom, 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 it's just going to wear down the capacity of the battery and the alternator is not going to produce enough, which then will also lower the volts. Once you lower the volts, the amperage will rise. Once the amperage rises, the heat will happen. It's like a domino effect. So what you do, always at least add a second battery, sometimes more depending on the power. And when in doubt, which it's not that expensive anymore, about $400 or $500, upgrade the alternator. And that will deal with most common upgraded systems. Okay, for the first comment, Scam Tech, is that Scam Tech? Scram Tech. What we call them mid-range and mid-bass speakers in Europe. Brit here, just like you don't know where you heard otherwise. Okay, sorry, Mr. Brit, over the pond and over the ocean. We're talking about B2 audio in this. And the actual owner and designer is the one that told me that commonly in Europe, there's not much of a mid-bass mid-range, and at least in the B2 audio line. Why? Because they are loudspeakers considered full range, which means it plays mids all the way up to highs. And in the video, most of those speakers we test, we show how low they go and how high it goes. It almost sounds like there's a tweeter playing. But I can't say you're wrong over there in Britain or wherever else, or what you call speakers. That's your prerogative. I'm just telling you about the line B2 audio and why we don't have mid-bass and mid-range at this point. We have full range. Going on to the next question. How do I tune my amp or DSP for best sound quality? That is not a question that we can answer on one video. There is so many things you have to do. 1, each device in the vehicle, from the head unit to the amps to anything, has to be tuned up to clipping, which means you need to get a clean signal. Once you get the max volume of the radio, max volume on your amplifiers at a clean signal, not clipping, then you can go into the DSP. The DSP is really for crossover and octave. What I mean by that, set each speaker to go as low as you want it to go and as high as you want to go. You do that off the parameters of the speaker. That's the cool thing about a DSP, where a normal crossover just has crossover points, which means you either set it to stay here and go down, or you set it from here to go up. With a DSP digital, you could set the low and the high to keep that speaker, subwoofer, tweeter, whatever, in that range. So DSP in the setting, first, like I said, you want to get all your devices like head unit or Bluetooth adapter for music, your amplifiers. Get that tuned to find out what the max setting is without clipping. Then look at the specs of the speakers. Set your crossover points for the low and the high that's recommended from the factory. And then finally, you can do tuning all the way to max, but still when you have multiple things, you still got to use a little bit of ear because you might not want it just as loud in the rear as the front or left and right and vice versa. So you kind of bring it together. DSP also allows you for presets, which means you could set it to be front heavy, rear heavy, bass heavy, normal driving, demoing, and go beep, and it automatically sets right there. So take your time when you set it. Comment number 2 from Sim Races. Keep on keeping on, Jeff. Fuck the haters. We don't know about shit. 100%, man. I appreciate it. And that's what keeps me going because a lot of you all out there have nothing better to do than just to talk shit. Now, for you people that do corrective criticism, and there's a bunch out there, hey, I love learning. I don't know everything, never claim to know anything. And if you correct me and you're right, I'm going to let you know that you was right. But for all the people that got nothing better to do and be keyboard warriors, keep on doing you. Okay, next question. How do I properly set the gain on my amp without distortion? Well, okay. DSP, we talked about. Now we're talking about setting gains on an amp. Here's your biggest ways. 3, I'll say. 1 is an O-scope, and you can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, or you can get yourself a real expensive one that'll show you the actual frequency wave, okay? And you can set that to not clip. All right, second way is SMD products. Make like the DD1, which you can set your gain and it will tell you when it hits distortion. And finally, if you don't have all that, you can use a multimeter. But you got to have some math. Use a multimeter. You take the RMS of the amplifier, times it by the ohms of the speaker you are connecting it to, and then you get the square root of that. Yeah, a lot of work, but not that hard. You just got to go RMS times the ohms and then hit the square root button, and then that'll give you a voltage to tune it to. You would put the multimeter in your positive negative on the amplifier, and you will adjust that gain to get exactly to that. That basically is a way to say, hey, this is where it is before it clips. Is that the perfect way? Well, that was the way they were doing it for a long time, but I'd recommend getting yourself a DD1. Why? Well, because over time you need to readjust and maintenance your equipment, which means you need to retune. So invest in that or a cheap O-scope. Let's get to the comment. The comment of all lifetime here is by 40, what is it?
4D0M45.
4D0, yeah, okay. First, you run burst tests, then certified and saying don't blow up. I think you don't know what you're doing. No, you don't know what you're doing there, buddy. Certified on a dyno is the hardest test to do on an amplifier, which generally will blow them up. Why? It's like the hardest test you can do on an amplifier. When you do dynamic burst, it is not. It's burst. It gives it time to basically refresh itself and the power to come back up. Where certified, it isn't. So if you're going to comment and try to sound smart, don't. I did that testing on that B2 amp because I just wanted to get the amp warmed up, and I did the dynamic burst first to show how much power could it really create in your car. Because in my opinion, which you think is not that smart, certified is not what you're going to see in your car every day. It's going to be the bass going boom, boom, boom. Dynamic burst. Oh! So there's you. I see you. You see me. All right, last question, which was supposed to be the question before, but Benjamin got this all mixed up, and I'm just kicking this on the fly. How do I stop my subwoofer box from rattling or flexing? Well, one, you got to do thick enough wood. Some people believe in birch. You can do MDF. I've seen people doing plywood, which I wouldn't recommend because that doesn't last long. But then you got to do bracing, right? I've seen people do tons of bracing inside, which will do that. I've seen people use sound deadening, won't really hold it together, but Rhino Coat is a cool one, and that actually does some sealing and holding together. But really, it's about bracing and having a thick enough baffle. Depending on how big a speakers you're doing, use 3/4 inch. And if you're doing really big bad boys, do some double baffle of 3/4 and 3/4, which I got my best friend here. What is 3/4 and 3/4? 1.5 inch of wood. Thank you. That's the way to make that box from flexing. For rattling, it is sealing it up very good. Use tons of wood glue. People think that the screws or the brad nails will hold together. It doesn't. It's the glue that bonds the two pieces of wood together. That is your seal. The screws and the brad nails basically hold it together. So Rattling and flexing, bracing, plenty of glue, maybe use silicone, maybe spray it with flex, whatever. Put as much on that box, make it stand up to the life of time. Hey, that was Car Audio episode number 4. I'm Big Jeff from BigJeffAudio.com. Hit that like button if you didn't. Subscribe, be a follower. Hey, support the channel. And look out for all the giveaways we do before you call me up or write me up trying to say, hey, can I get something for free? Can you give me a discount? And I'm like, hey, can you at least promote my business and help me and my employees out? Where can you do that at? BigJeffAudio.com, Facebook and Twitter, or it's not even Twitter, but what is it called? X now? And you got Instagram and TikTok and all of them /Big Jeff Audio. Hey, I'll see you on the next one, man. Hope to talk about some more. Okay, the next comment is...
We have a question.
Oh, question, sorry.
We're saving the best comment for
Okay, we're going to save the best comment for last. Jim Benjamin says back there. Next question. Can I run high-powered amp on my stock electrical system? I think we already went over this one there, Benjamin. And I said, what was high-powered? And we went over that. So that's not it. Let's get to the comment.